Hello, and welcome to my commentary on the first Emerald Tablet, the history of Thoth the Atlantean. I'll confess I'm a little nervous about this one because I don't know how many of my viewers have read this and have their own opinion. So I might get some very opinionated commentary to my commentary, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so the first section here, I think the way I need to do this is read the portion and then talk about it. Though some of the portions are rather long, so I may break those up. Okay, so the first part is, I, Thoth the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti, set down for the guidance for those who are to come after, these records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. There's really not much to add to that section. It talks a lot about the halls of Amenti throughout the text. If I remember correctly, the second one actually goes into greater detail on that one. But I find it interesting that he calls himself a magician, considering he talks about using magic science. So he's calling himself a magician here instead of a scientist. So that's a little curious to me, rather than saying mage scientist or something like that. So yeah. The next section. In the great city of Kior on the island of Undal, in a time far past, I began this incarnation. Not as the little men of the present age did the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather from eon to eon did they renew their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Okay, what this section here means to me is that the Atlanteans were giants, right? Because in the age when he wrote these tablets up, he says, not as the little men of present age, which means he wasn't little. He also states that the people of Atlantis lived much, much, much longer. I do question the idea of all of the Atlanteans having access to the halls of Amenti, because I don't think that was true. I really don't. I think some of the people of Atlantis had access to the halls of Amenti, because later in the text it sounds like you need to earn access. It's not that you are just randomly granted access to the halls of Amenti just because of who you are or where you are. You have to earn that one. Okay. 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led into light, and as many times I have ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power renewed. A lot of things in here, when he's talking about darkness, he's referring to death and dying and the body being a darkness itself, because it's trapping the soul. We can't be who we are when we're not embodied. But in this case, he's talking about traveling into the dark halls of Amenti, because there's not much light, in the underground passages. But so basically, 100 times 10. So that's a lot of time frame, a lot of times he's had to go down there. And in the later text, it talks about the length of time being down there. So it gives you an idea of how old he really is. He'd been around for a while when he finally decided to go down there and stay there for a while. Now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. Now that's only two lines into the big huge paragraph here, but Chem is Egypt, and that'll become more clear later on, but Chem is Egypt. So when you hear that through this portion of the text, that's who he's talking about. But in a time yet unborn will I rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me. So basically he has given instructions to a group of people who are to keep record and to teach in his absence, so that when he inhabits another body, he can find out what's happened in the time between this time and when he incarnates again. Then beware, O men of Chem, if ye have falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast ye down from your high estate into the darkness of the caves from whence ye came. Yeah, I'd listen to that. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon ye. Now, I'm curious who he's talking about in terms of the men of the north and the men of the south, because I don't recall him mentioning those ever again in the rest of this text. So I don't know who those people would be. Remember and heed my words, for surely I will return again and require of thee that which ye guard, which is the knowledge and wisdom that he acquired from Atlantis. All the records that he's been maintaining and writing that he took with him and then continued to write as time passed, all that kind of stuff. I, even from beyond time and from beyond death, will I return, rewarding or punishing as ye have required or as you have requited your trust. Great were my people in the ancient days, great beyond the conception of the little people now around me. See, another reference to the idea that he is much bigger than the humans that he's amongst now. Knowing the wisdom of old, seeking far within the heart of infinity, knowledge that belonged to earth's youth. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light, who dwelt among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. Okay. I'm trying to remember here. I think the children of light are gone to in more detail in the next tablet, but the children of light are not born of earth. Basically, they came down, they created their own little meat suits, right? They're biomechanical suits that were made to look like us. They inhabited those, walked amongst us, but they're not actually human. They were just pretending to be human. And they were the ones who were teaching the Atlanteans about wisdom. And the eternal fire, I believe, is the flower of life that they put down in the halls of Amenti. And from all these, greatest among the children of men was my father. And I don't know if this is thought me or taught me or what. It's spelled Thotme. So I was pronouncing it, I think, thought me. I don't speak the language of Atlantis, so it's up to each of us to figure out how we want to pronounce that. Keeper of the great temple, link between the children of light, who dwelt within the temple, and the races of men who inhabited the 10 islands. Mouthpiece after the three of the dweller of Uno, So basically, the dweller of Unal had 3 messengers, and his father was the supreme person just below those 3 messengers. Speaking to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed. Grew I there from child into manhood, being taught by my father the elder mysteries, until in time there grew within the fire of wisdom, until it burst into a consuming fire, or consuming flame. That's basically a lot of words to say that he was consumed by the desire for more and more wisdom. And I'm not surprised there's no mention in here of him having a wife or children, because of how consumed he was by the desire for knowledge and wisdom. You know, it never in here explains why he wanted it at that time. It's clear towards the end that he continued to want it because he wanted to teach wisdom to men, to lift them into the light. But in this very beginning, it doesn't get into that. So I don't know if that was his desire the entire time, or if that's what his desire became later. Not desired I but the attainment of wisdom, until on a great day the command came from the dweller of the temple, that I be brought before him. Few there were among the children of men who had looked upon that mighty face and lived, for not as the sons of men are the children of light, when they are not incarnate in a physical body. And that's why I say there's no way that all the people, or the children of men, all the Atlanteans at the time, had access to the halls of Amenti. Because to get to the halls of Amenti, you had to have permission to get there through the dweller. So if few had permission to even be in the dweller's presence, then few had access to the halls of Amenti. But what is his definition of the word few? Chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller, so that his purposes might be fulfilled. And again, it doesn't just mention in here what the dweller's purposes are, but it hints at that later on when it says that the children of light also desire wisdom, and that it's a never-ending quest. There's always more wisdom to be gained, no matter how old, no matter how long you've been on this path. There's always more to be gained. Purposes yet unborn in the womb of time. Long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever and yet ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amenti, the underworld, where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death. And I find that interesting too, because later on when he talks about the halls of Amenti and meeting the lords of life and death, he only mentions one lord of death. There was only one dark figure sitting on a throne. But here in the text, it's plural. So who are the other lords of death? Did he just not meet them? I don't know. Receiving as my gift the key of life. And that's immortality. Free was I of the halls of Amenti, which means he could come and go as he pleased. Bound not by death to the circle of life. Far to the stars I journeyed, until space and time became as naught. Having drunk deep of my cup of wisdom, I looked into the hearts of men. Here it's basically talking about astral traveling. And later on, much later, he talks about how to astral travel. But this is his first hint of astral traveling. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that for right now, because I'll talk more about it in later tablets. And there I found the greater mysteries and was glad. So basically he's saying that when he looked deeper at man, he found much more wisdom than he thought he would, and he's quite happy that he found it where he found it. For only in the search for truth could my soul be stilled and the flame within be quenched. I'm not sure I buy that the flame within was ever quenched. I don't buy that. Down through the ages I lived, seeing those around me taste of the cup of death and return again in the light of life. So their body died. I don't know if he's meaning they reincarnated, but I think he is, because he also refers to the light of life of what you are after you've left your body. But considering he says return again, that tells me that this portion he's talking about reincarnation. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by the spawn of a lower star. So basically he's saying the humans that inhabited Atlantis were of a higher conscious level than the people of Chem and probably of any other nationality, I guess, civilization that occurred at the time. And basically over time it just kept getting lower and lower and lower. Even in Atlantis, there's references in here that when he was first born, Atlantis was at a higher level of consciousness than when Atlantis fell. And that's my opinion as to why they say Atlantis fell, because you're falling in conscious level. Okay. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into flower. Downward into darkness turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans. Yeah, that's the part I'm talking about right there. That they lowered themselves in consciousness into darkness. Until at last in his wrath arose from his Agwanti, the dweller. Now it doesn't specify what an Agwanti is. Not even in the text here from, what's his name again? Dr. Dorial. I don't remember reading and hear him even taking a guess at what an Agwanti is. My guess at an Agwanti is like a resting place, because he was doing his astral traveling, and even the references to astral traveling, and later on when it tells you how to do it, when you do it, you're literally your body is shaking. And my understanding, I haven't tried it yet, but my understanding is that if you are sitting in a chair, you're going to fall. It's best to be laying down in your bed. And even then, you can still shake so much that you fall off the bed onto the floor. So to me, if he's astral traveling to see what he saw, then when he arose in his wrath from his Agwanti, to me that would be like the that sarcophagus they have in the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. There's no lid to it. But if you're going to be astral traveling and you don't want to fall on the floor, a container that's got sides on it to keep you in position when you're astral traveling would probably be the best thing for you. So to me, that's what the Agwanti is, until I learn otherwise. Speaking the word, calling the power deep in heart's earth, the sons of Amenti heard, and hearing, directing or directed the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting using the logos until the great fire changed its direction. Now, I've heard logos mentioned in other texts, but I don't know what they were calling it. Clearly, it's some sort of technology that we don't have, and that's probably a good thing, probably a very, very good thing. But basically, he didn't like what he saw, so he called down to the halls of Amenti and said, time to make those changes. Let's get it done. So they caused the flood to sink Atlantis. And the flower of fire, I'm pretty sure they're talking about the flower of life, which is the poorly shaped thing here, which I will replace someday, but for right now I'm going to keep using it. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance until only the temple of light was left standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. My thoughts there is basically he let certain people know what was going to happen and had them come to the temple, and then he had the flood happen. Called to me then the master, saying, gather ye together my people, take them by the arts ye have learned of, far across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians, dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. So basically all the survivors, because it's my people, people that were chosen by the dweller, were then taken to Kem. Gathered I then my people, because at that point they became Thoth's people, and entered the great ship of the master. And I like how he put that there, okay? Because Atlantis had some pretty interesting technologies. I actually have a past life of Atlantis, and what I remember from that life is the death that I had. The city was under attack, and I got in a air vehicle. It was like a single person vehicle, and I was dodging, I don't know if it was lasers or meteors, but I zigged when I should have zagged, and I ended up drowning in the ocean. So there were air vehicles in Atlantis, but this is not an air vehicle. This is a spaceship, and it's of the master, meaning it's the dweller spaceship. So Atlantis itself did not have the technology for spacefaring, which is, to me, is very curious considering what technology they did have. Upward we rose into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth until the time appointed was the great temple. So basically they held back the waters to drown the temple until they knew the chosen were safely away. Help. Oh, did I skip the page? Yes. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning, until beneath us lay the land of the children of Kem. Raging they came with cudgels and spears lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Which makes total sense. At the same time, you can just picture this. These huge giants just stepped out of a spaceship, and you're going to bludgeon them to death with cudgels and spear them. Right. Then raised I my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks, as fragments of stone of the mountain. Then spoke I to them in words calm and peaceful, then telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were the children of the sun and its messengers. And I find this interesting. Okay. So, and again, it's probably some technology he had in his staff as well, but it's the land of the hairy barbarians. They don't know these people. Clearly, this is their first meeting. And he spoke to them and told them of the might of Atlantis, and these people just automatically understood. So I don't know if some of the wisdom he learned in the temple was their language, or if it was some technology that he had in his staff, because I can't remember where, but if I remember correctly, there was a portion in here where he talked about having like 50 technologies in that staff. It wasn't just a one and done thing. It was a nice multi-tool. Cowed-eyed them by my display of magic science, until at my feet they groveled when I released them. See, that magic science, and it's hyphenated. Long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the Master, who, while sleeping, yet lives eternally, I sent from me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children. Now, this passage here explains a lot, because my understanding was Atlantis was not an island civilization thing. It was a worldwide thing. But this, to me, means that it actually was more centralized, because these other civilizations didn't know them. But one of the big questions is, if we were so segregated and so isolated, why are there so many similarities in the histories? You know, similarities in languages, when the distance of where the civilizations are is so great, right? But this explains that right there, of the survivors of Atlantis went to all the other lands of barbarians and grew them up the same way Thoth grew up Egypt. So that's why the similarities exist. Long time dwelt I in the land of Chem, doing great work by the wisdom within me. Upward grew in the light of knowledge the children of Chem. That's what I was just talking about, raising them up. Watered by the rains of my wisdom, blasted I then a path to Amenti, so that I might retain my powers, living from age to age a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. Again, like you said in the section, the last page over, he's got to go down to the halls of Amenti to renew himself so that he can keep his body. As his soul, he's fine, but the body deteriorates. The biomechanical suit needs to be recharged. So he's got to go down there and do that. And because Atlantis fell, he needed a new access point. Okay, that's over there, so I'm not going to talk about that yet. Great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force, and that's S-O-U-L, not S-O-L-E. So the soul internally was the force. Now for a time I go from among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep in the halls of the earth, before the lords of the powers, face to face once again with the dweller. Raised I high over the entrance, a doorway, a gateway, leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it, Few pass the portal to dark Amenti. Okay. I'll elaborate more on that one in a minute. Raised over the passage, I, a mighty pyramid, using the power that overcomes earth force. And he put in parentheses gravity. And he's using the same rod he used to cow the people to build this. So the stories of being used to the slavery built and all that stuff, the Great Pyramid was built with Atlantean technology. Not by the back of slaves, not strange things. He didn't haul rock from somewhere. He used the staff. This is it, right? Deep and yet deeper placed I a force house or chamber. From it carved I a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. There in the apex set I the crystal, sending the ray into the time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. So when I read through this the first time, I was thinking that the sarcophagus in the king's chamber was just swapped out and a smaller one was put in later on. But that's not the case. If I'm understanding this correctly, there is a second giant-sized sarcophagus under the pyramid. I don't know if it's been discovered and not talked about, or if it's not been discovered at all. He did a very good job at hiding the passageways and all that stuff. And I think that's part of why the pyramids are so guarded, because they don't want us having access to the halls of Amenti, using this as the template to do so. Other chambers I built and left vacant to all seeming, yet hidden in them are the keys to Amenti. He who in courage would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first by long fasting. Now, if I remember correctly, there's another thing where fasting was for 3 days. So I don't know if he means longer than 3 days for long fasting, or, what does long fasting mean? Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. Then reveal I to him the great mysteries. Soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Now it could also be that the king's chamber sarcophagus was added in when he got reincarnated into a present-day human-sized body. So that's also a possibility. Builded I the great pyramid, patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally so that it, too, might remain through the ages. In it I builded my knowledge of magic science, so that it might be here when again I return from Amenti. While I sleep in the halls of Amenti, my soul, roaming free, will incarnate. Dwell among him, or among men in the form of, or in this form or another. And in parentheses here it says Hermes the thrice-born, right? Because Hermes was the reincarnated Thoth. Now I forget who, because it says thrice-born, so I forget who the second incarnation was. See, I still have a lot more to learn. Emissary on earth am I of the dweller, fulfilling his commands so man might be lifted. Now return I to the halls of Amenti, leaving behind me some of my wisdom. Preserve ye and keep ye the command of the dweller. Lift ever upwards your eyes toward the light. Again, that's a metaphor for raising your consciousness toward the light instead of, because the consciousness fell so much into the darkness, we need to get that vibration up. Surely in time ye are one with the Master. Surely by right ye are one with the Master. Surely by right ye are one with the All. Right? So when you lift your consciousness high enough, you'll go back to being part of the oneness. Yeah, we call it oneness now instead of just one. And all is capitalized. He uses capital letters for specific keywords there. Now I depart from ye. Know my commandments. Keep them and be them, and I will be with you, helping and guiding you into the light. Now before me opens the portal. Go I down in the darkness of night. Now he made another reference to now the portal opens. So that makes me wonder how exactly the portal opens, right? Is it... Oh, that's right. He did discuss that in a later... Yeah. So we'll talk about that further in this journey. So I guess that's all I have. Thank you for watching. If you like if you like this type of video, comment. If you don't, go ahead and comment, and I'll see if just don't make me cry, okay? Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.